kind of switching gears here. I want to hear a little bit more about your new solo record, BK3. It's your third one out now.
Right.
And it took you 6 years to actually get it out. I'm just kind of curious why it took that long of a time to actually get it released.
Well, the first album I did, Audio Dog, was really the first time jumping in the pool and figuring out if I could swim and pull off something like a solo record. And I didn't look for any label to help me with it, or marketing or publicity or distribution or anything. I just basically sold it out of the trunk of my car, or translation on the internet, you know what I mean?
Right.
And at events. And I did quite well with it. But it was still really new for me. And by this time I did the second record, I felt a little more confident. That was a CD called Transformer, and that came out like in 2003. By the end of 2003 is when I wrote like kind of the first thing that was going to be on BK3, and that was I'll Survive, because I did have a crazy thing go down where I got shot on Sunset Boulevard, just some crazy guy down the block shooting a gun,
Kidding me.
Yeah, I could have been killed, but I was very lucky. Just a bullet went through my leg, and the other one grazed my head. It was like one of these crazy freak things. But hence the lyrics of "I'll Survive" on BK3. But it was right before then is when the guy that produced the record with me, Jeremy Rubolino, approached me, and he really wanted to work with me. I knew Jeremy. He was a younger guy, very talented. He played me his CD of music that he was working on up to then. And I said, let's get together on the next record. So we started writing in 04 and 05 and demoing, always taking our time to make everything right, because we made a commitment that our benchmark for BK3 would be revenge. In other words, it's got to blow away anything I did before as a solo artist. Now, you got to remember the other two records, I'm proud of them, but I did do them fairly quickly, and I didn't have a lot of help, all right? When you have a producer who has a vision and someone that's going to kick your ass, and if he's very talented too, you've just put yourself in a much higher level, And I saw that with Kiss even. I love what Bob Ezrin did for Revenge, and I know why he was involved with Pink Floyd and Peter Gabriel and Alice Cooper, you know what I mean?
Yep.
There's no doubt even the Beatles with George Martin, it wouldn't have played out the same without George Martin. So Jeremy took on a big role, of course, but his talent and his pushing me and having this vision for a really, really solid record. We didn't really know about the special guest yet, if you know what I mean, but the commitment was this was not going to be about like, okay, we're going to bang it out in a month and boom, and there we go. It was always going to be, if it means that we have to do the song a few times, fine. And I agreed to that, and we'd use better studios, better engineers, and then all of a sudden the guests started to come in, where I asked Gene, and then Gene says yes, and then he says, how about Nick, and it was very organic getting all the guests. Now, all the while, all those years, because you said the 6 years, and I don't want to ignore that, I'm also the guitarist in Grand Funk Railroad, and that easily takes up about a third of my year with the dates that we do. Then on top of it, like I mentioned before, I'll do the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and then I'll go do sessions, then I'll work with Eric Singer as ESP, and we'll tour in Europe for 3 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't turn down, the paid work that's good for my career at the same time as when I can get the work done on BK3. Plus, I recorded more songs than originally, in other words, the first batch of 10, probably only 6 of those survived. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So the formula kept changing, the recipe for the record kept evolving, especially once I got Gene and Nick and John, and then all of a sudden I don't have an instrumental, and then it's like, wow, okay, I got to do an instrumental. I didn't have any prepared for this record, and then all of a sudden I got Lukather on it. And sometimes I had to coordinate my schedule, obviously, with these guest, artists because of their schedules too. So it was a labor of love, all that time and effort, and it was never about it has to be done by, I was funding it anyway, so there's no label breathing down my neck, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it all played out exactly how it should. And when you don't compromise and you make sure, it took Kiss for Revenge almost a year to do that record, and there was no distractions, there was no other jobs really, going around. You get what I mean?
Yep, that's a great
record. No
record.
other commitments that the band had to do in a big way, but again, between the songwriting and the recording schedule, and I remember starting and doing things and us completely starting again and throwing it out, and we were in the studio for months, but Revenge shows that. I think it's the best non-makeup record for sure, if not one, the top 2 or 3 of the whole Kiss catalog as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It was a high benchmark for Jeremy and I, but time would not let us, lower the benchmark for what BK3 had to be.
Well, then how about all these aspiring guitarists? What would you say to them? What kind of advice would you give to them, from a kind of a music business industry standpoint, and also just to be, an established guitar player? What do you say to those people that want to follow in your footsteps? Do you recommend it with the music industry the way it is nowadays, or?
Well, I mean, it keeps evolving, and new bands break all the time, though. Even though the rules keep changing, and it used to be very old school with how everything was done, a certain machinery, and the internet has changed a lot of things, and the social networking has changed a lot of things. But in the end, it's always about having something unique, great songs, something catchy and memorable. I'll give you an example of a band that's not extremely rock, but I can get why they're being used in car commercials and things like that. But this group like Phoenix has this song that's very catchy. It's just two guitars. The guitars are doing weird things, cool drum part, kind of a weak vocal thing, but it doesn't matter. It's catchy as hell. Next thing you know, it's attached to this and this and this and this, and you see them on TV. I think they're actually a French band. I think I actually Googled them and looked them up. But it's really interesting because they came out of nowhere, obviously, and who knows? I mean, their favorite band could be the Beatles, or maybe it's AC/DC. You wouldn't know. Their song is unique, but it still has elements of rock and roll. You know what I mean? There's still guitars going on. So what I really tell the people that are trying to break into the music business is really you do have to adapt to things. You got to be good at what you do, but I think it's most important that you kind of are realistic also about what's out there, and then in some way take what's best of what you have and the people that hopefully your band that you work with, and make it unique. Make your thing stand out so that it isn't just a clone of whatever's the flavor of the day. I never think that makes it. Think about how Kiss broke. Yeah, they wanted to go the extra mile, or I'd call it the extra, like giant, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, with the makeup and the stage show being so over the top. But clearly they drew on their influences of Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Who, and stuff like that. But they still did it their own way. They didn't ever rip off and sound exactly like any of those bands I just mentioned. You see what I mean?
Yep.
They just did their own kind of, in fact, in the beginning it was very much of a garage band rock and roll thing. But they were absolutely influenced by everything that came before. But they did it their way. And then they were fortunate to have this concept of how they presented themselves that obviously got them some notice. Some ridicule, too, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning. I kind of didn't want to take them seriously when I first heard about them because of the makeup. I was more a purist about stuff like that. But in the end, all it took me was seeing one of their shows and seeing how, I get it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're pretty exciting, and this is fun. And, hey, that music rocks, So.
Well, we want to thank you for your contributions, Bruce, and thank you for being on Icons today. Sincerely, huge inspiration to all, and it's just been a real pleasure and a privilege to speak with you. So thank you again.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
That is the end of part 2. We hope you enjoyed listening to Icons. Check out other segments and guest interviews. If you have ideas for future topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please call 763-412-0771. Icons is produced and recorded by Jason Medvec at Batcave Studios in St. Paul, Minnesota. For Rob Feeney, I'm Sunny Warner, and find me at sunnywarner.com. Thanks for listening to Icons.